Hey guys, welcome back to Between the Zones. It's just Will and I this time. We're going to be covering fantasy football today, and we're going to tell you guys what to do to make sure you win in week 4 of fantasy football.
Make sure you head down in the comments, guys, and tell us how your fantasy team did last week. We love the fan interaction. We love to hear what you guys have to say. And make sure you hit that subscribe button and like as always.
Alright, well, let's keep the intro short and get into it because that's what you're here for. Alright, so let's get into things here. As you just saw that flashed up top, we're going to be covering boom and bust and waiver wire pickups. So I think this week, in my opinion, was really interesting, as we had a whole bunch of guys who kind of came from like really super unrostered and just didn't get the respect they needed to, and just got the chances through injuries, through just different scheming, and really showed up this week. If we want to start it off, I have 2 running backs that I got lucky enough to pick up. Is James Robinson of the Jaguars and Mike Davis of the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, all I got to say is really great performance out of these two. If you really want a decent running back that's going to put 15 plus each game, I would go ahead and pick these guys up maybe for week 2. See how their matchup is. You're definitely going to get a lot of use out of them in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so as Will was saying, these guys look like pretty solid picks. As Mike Davis for Carolina, he's stepping in for the injured Christian McCaffrey. Of course, his workload's going to go away mostly once McCaffrey's back, but that's not for another 3, 4, 5 weeks even. And I think the big thing to point out here is he still produces with McCaffrey. The week before McCaffrey left, he put up 15.5 points in our league. He had a receiving touchdown. He averages about 40 to 50 yards receiving, and he rushes the ball well. Last week, he put up a great game. I believe it was around 25 points in our league. We run a non-PPR league, and I mean, he had a great game, and it looks like he really will be consistent with them, as Carolina doesn't have the strongest wide receivers, or that's not exactly how they're only relying on. So he will get action. He was also their leading receiver. James Robinson, on the other hand, is a rookie, and he went undrafted, I believe, or it was 7th round. He really just went under the radar, and it's not that he does anything real flashy. He's just been a solid player for them.
He's been pounding the ball for them.
Yeah.
And I also think that the receiving core for the Jaguars it's not all there. Gardner Minshew's a decent quarterback. It's just they're gonna have to rely on the run game a lot this year. So I definitely pick him up if you need a good running back.
Yeah. We'll get to them more later on the waiver wire and give you a couple more stats, but we can go ahead and move on. Will, if you want to talk about these next 2 wide receivers.
So yeah, Keenan Allen and Allen Robinson both had extremely good games this week. Allen Robinson got a lot more targets from Trubisky and Foles, and the Chicago has actually announced that Foles will be starting. So we're going to see Allen Robinson getting way more targets, I would hope, and some better passes.
Yeah. I think that's going to be the big thing for Allen Robinson. Trubisky, he was kind of on the wire. He was just on the border with that team. You couldn't really figure it out. I think you will get slightly more consistent play out of Nick Foles. I wouldn't expect to see Allen Robinson put up these 30-point games every week, but I think this is a good turn for him, and this will help him out in the future. Same thing with Keenan Allen. I think this week was really his breakout week. Now, last week he did put up decent numbers, but this week just established that that won't be a fluke, and I do believe he will be putting up decent wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 1, if you're playing a pretty deep league, he will be an effective wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a good person to put at flex under Justin Herbert. If he can produce this year, then Keenan Allen's going to have a great year. I mean, their receiving core is pretty good, but Keenan Allen makes up for a lot of that, so he's going to get a lot more targets this year.
Yeah. I've got 2 quarterbacks I want to cover real quick, just because we don't need to talk about them a lot. Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. The thing here is Patrick Mahomes showed that he can win big-time games, and that's important, and he did not shy down, and their team had a great game. It was an overall performance. We don't have to say a lot. He's the best quarterback in the league. He will be the best quarterback in the league for years to come, as long as injuries don't come about him, and you're lucky to have him. He really will be dominant. Russell Wilson, I think he's easily going to be the second best quarterback this year. Lamar, especially after last game, just kind of faded off. I think this is their year Russell Wilson has a chance to win his MVP. They have really just committed to he is the guy, and it's not a run base like it was with Marshawn Lynch. Chris Carson is good, but it's not circled around him or Rashad Penny. It is just all about Russell, and he does whatever he wants, and it looks great for him. He's done amazing. He's put up 4+ touchdowns in 2 or 3 games so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we want to skip on ahead, we actually have a wide receiver, Russell Wilson, Tyler Lockett, and not a lot to say about Lockett. He's kind of an under the radar guy. If you know him, you know him. But I mean, with Russell Wilson, of course, you're going to get good targets. Him and DK Metcalf are going to put up pretty consistent, similar numbers. Lockett is the number one wide receiver there, though. If you want to go ahead and cover the next couple guys.
Yeah, we can do Alvin Kamara and Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson we'll get to later, but Kamara booming this week for, 40 points it was? So the Saints obviously have a lot of good talent on their team with their receivers and their running backs, but Kamara just continues to shine each and every week. This week was no less. Just a great game out of him. Maybe you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player to watch. He's going to give you that dual threat. He will help you. He's a great running back. He's also great in the passing game. He just does a little bit of everything. He'll get his numbers. He's going to find a way. Drew Brees is able to get him the ball. He's just going to get his numbers every week. If you have him, you're lucky. If he has a bad week, try to buy fast because he is just going to be a great player. Yeah, and like Will said, we did mention Justin Jefferson, but we have a plan to talk about him a lot in the later part of this podcast. We've got one more thing under the boom side of things. We're trying to keep it quick for you guys. Is the Indiana defense? They dropped 27 points. I think that's all we need to really say. I wouldn't expect no way you can expect the defense to do this. Really, if your defense is putting up 10 consistently, you should be happy. But it does show that Indiana's defense has the ability to play very well, and they're not a defense to slack on. If you have them, if you can pick them up, I wouldn't say no to that.
Right.
We can talk about busts a little bit. It's basically half the Ravens roster.
Just all the Ravens
and
roster
then
here.
Cam Newton and AJ Green. We can go with the Ravens first.
Yeah, I mean, Ravens just a horrible game last night from all of them. Lamar did not play good. Just not getting it done offensively. I mean, I guess the Chiefs defense just shut them down completely, but I mean, it's really questionable what was going on in that game.
Yeah, I mean, the three main players we want to cover here is Lamar, Marquise Brown, and Mark Ingram. Like, you expect those three guys, you expect Marquise Brown to be the number one wide receiver. They do a great job at getting the ball to the tight ends, but you still expect your number one wide receiver to put up numbers for you, especially coming off of a quarterback who's your MVP. He should be able to get it to your number one guy, who is a rocket of a speedster. I mean, he gets open. And then Mark Ingram, it's just, you can't see three points out of Mark Ingram any week. It's just not acceptable at that point. They had a bad game. I wouldn't sell yet on any of these guys. I think they're still great players. It's just a bad week. Maybe they got flustered Monday Night Football against the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still easily favored to win the Super Bowl and everything here. If you want to go ahead and cover the last two guys, Cam and AJ.
We got Cam and AJ. Cam Newton actually didn't put up the best game. I think they played the,
Raiders.
And
they struggled in the early part of that game.
And it's not like the Raiders' defense is all that good anyway. I think Cam just, showing that, he can be good, but, he's slowing down a little bit. Just an interception or two. Just some mistakes. He can fix on it. I feel like don't count him out. He's going to be good in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And AJ?
Oh, AJ Green. Oh my gosh, what do I have to say about AJ Green? You want to take this one?
Yeah. So my thing with AJ was he's been a great wide receiver. He's gonna go down as a great wide receiver. I expected him, now that he's always had mediocre quarterback play, and I'm not saying Joe Burrow is better than mediocre yet because he's a rookie, but Burrow's played well.
Yeah.
And I expected AJ Green and Tyler Boyd, who someone will talk about later, I believe, or we may not, but I will bring up Tyler Boyd on my own. Yeah. I expected them to do great, and AJ hasn't done that. Maybe it'll change. I wouldn't expect it to change, really. It's been kind of lackluster from him.
It's based on that O-line, just not being able to protect Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I feel like he can flourish as a QB, and then AJ Green would do a little better. It sucks. I mean,
that team...
It's talent gone to waste.
It is, and that's kind of how the Bengals have been for a while. I feel bad. I hope Joe Burrow is able to be the person that turns this team around, but it seems like he's putting everything he can into this, and it's just not getting the return from his teammates. If we want to go and hop ahead, you guys might see the graphic here or here and up there. We're going to cover the waiver wire pickups for this week.
Yeah, waiver.
we mentioned him before, Justin Jefferson. He was the Vikings wide receiver. If you want to talk a little bit about it.
So as he's getting more catches, he's doing way better. His first touchdown, he did a little dance. He's getting a little swagger out there. Dropping 30 points. That's a lot of swagger. I went ahead and picked him up in our league. I'm going to hope that I get him because he has just been improving every single week. So we're going to have to see how he plays out. But yeah, he's looking solid already.
Yeah, like Will was saying, he looked like he got a little more confident, a little more comfortable with that Vikings offense. The Vikings are still struggling, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins is not playing to the level that they paid him a couple years back. But Justin Jefferson, as Will was saying, has gained more targets and is getting more yards. He's making his receptions when they're thrown to him. He's looking better over the weeks. I wouldn't immediately buy on him if he's on one of your opponent's teams. Right. I wouldn't try to go for that trade automatically unless he is riding the bench consistently, and maybe you can grab him for a little bit. But I wouldn't believe that he's going to drop that all the time, drop 30 points. A good thing for you guys, though, is that he's only rostered in 33.5% of leagues. Yeah. So a majority of those leagues, you will have chances. Those non-super deep leagues, you will have the chance to get this guy, and he should be able to potentially compete for that flex spot or that wide receiver 2 spot.
It all depends on if Cousins is going to do good. So, I would just watch the matchup and I would see, is Cousins going to be good against this defense? So you just see how it plays out.
Yeah. Our next two guys, we covered them before, James Robinson and Mike Davis. The big story about them is they still are available in some leagues. James Robinson is now rostered in 88% of leagues, but he gained 25% of that last week. You might have been lucky enough to pick him up. And Mike Davis is rostered in 77.6% of leagues, but last week he was only rostered in 0.1. So if you're one of those 77%, good for you, because that's a steal of a player who will produce for multiple weeks until McCaffrey gets back. There's not a lot we can say about them that we haven't already said before.
Right.
If you want to go ahead and talk about Carlos Hyde for the Seahawks.
So we got Carlos Hyde for the Seahawks.
Yeah. All right. So the big story about him is just that he will be the lead back now for them since Chris Carson is hurt for the next couple of weeks. Right. He won't be consistent throughout the year as Chris Carson comes back. But I wouldn't be against picking him up now, as it does look like he will be able to produce for a couple of weeks. But it is Russell's offense. This is not going to be a place where Carlos comes in and gets 20, 25 carries per game. You want to cover someone?
Yeah, so Justin Herbert, quarterback for Chargers.
Yep.
Make sure I had that right. Cut this out. All right, Justin Herbert. So he's got Keenan Allen. He's got decent receivers. If he can develop with this decent O-line, I think he's going to be good. So if you don't have a quarterback already, I would definitely take Justin Herbert. There might be someone available that's better, but we're getting a little later into the fantasy scheme, so you might not have someone. I would take Justin Herbert.
Yeah, the big thing about Herbert is that he's rostered in only 15% of leagues, and the thing I forgot to say about Hyde is he's rostered in less than 10% of leagues. You have chances to get these players that will produce as it goes down. It looks like Herbert's pretty much locked up that starting spot after Tyrod had his lung punctured.
Tyrod.
It stings for Tyrod, but it looks like it's Herbert's team now. We've got two more people that we want to cover. I'll let you cover the Rams, and I'll cover Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk is, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the running back for the 49ers. And since Raheem Mostert is out, he's getting the start. And it's kind of how Raheem Mostert wasn't really known to be like a great running back and wasn't expected to do as well. In this Rams scheme, this 49ers scheme has really turned him into a great player. Same thing with Ayuk. He's a player of the system. He's not a great player I would expect in other systems, but this system has turned him into a viable option for that running back too, and or that flex position if you need him to. So Ayuk is a great guy. He's only rostered in 16% of leagues. I wouldn't be afraid to pick him up if I'm you guys.
And our last waiver wire pickup is the Rams defense, actually. So they play the Giants in Week 4. So
yeah.
if you don't have a good defense that's going to produce, I would definitely pick up the Rams. They're pretty good with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. But if you don't have a decent defense that's going to produce, which I know a lot of people are in the same boat. I am in that boat, and I'm in our league. I might just go ahead and pick up the Rams because they're playing the Giants, and the Giants just suck.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing.
that's how I've been playing my team, at least, is I don't have a consistent defense because things change. You're never going to get a defense that puts up the same numbers every week. So I've been very confident just picking up guys off the wire. And this is who I've picked up this week. I've gone ahead and taken the Rams in our league as long as I get that on the waiver wire. But yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed Boom and Bust and Waiver Wire, our fantasy countdown for week 4. And yeah.
Like I said, we're going to wrap the video up, guys. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Link tree in the description. Go ahead and check that out. We'll see you guys.
We'll see you guys. Thank you. Peace.